She was my past. I left without a trace, but her return was louder than any goodbye. She called my office and said, "I need you to listen. Just once. Then I'll vanish again." I should have hung up, but my thumb froze above the red button, and instead, I closed my office door. Her voice hadn't changed. Still sharp, still soaked in that fake warmth she used on waiters and bank tellers. But underneath it was something else. Desperation? Arrogance? Guilt? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that it stirred a storm in my chest I thought had settled long ago. "I'm coming back to the city," she continued. "You'll want to see me." "No, Madison," I said flatly. "That chapter is sealed. You burned the pages, remember?" A pause. Then a laugh, hollow and slow. "Oh, Jackson. Always so dramatic. You think you know everything. But I never told you the whole story." Click. I hung up before I could ask what story she meant. That night, I sat in my apartment in the dark, staring at a whiskey bottle I hadn't touched in 3 years. The silence around me was too loud. She always did this. Knew how to crawl under my skin like a splinter, small, sharp, and hard to pull out. I thought about our last day together. The slammed doors. The shattered glass. The way she smirked as she threw her wedding ring into the fireplace and said, "I was too much for you." Always was. I remember her heels clicking away, each step echoing like a countdown. She didn't cry. Didn't plead. She left like a villain in heels, confident, cruel, and proud of the mess she made. And I stayed behind, cleaning up the ashes. Now she wanted to come back? 2 days later, I walked into my office and found a manila envelope on my desk. No stamp. No return address. Just my name, Jackson Cole, scribbled in lipstick red ink. Inside were photos. Blurry, zoomed-in shots. Madison. A man. Hands where they shouldn't be. Hotel lobbies. Her in the black dress I bought for our anniversary, the one she claimed she lost. The timestamps? Every date aligned with her weekend charity retreats. There were receipts too. Flight tickets. Dinner bills. One from a boutique hotel in Miami, signed in her hand, with his name beside hers. Travis Dunn. My fist clenched so tight I thought I'd shatter bone. I wasn't angry at the affair itself. That part. I think I always knew. I was angry at the performance. The lies. The way she looked me in the eye and said, "I love you, but I just need space to grow." Grow where? Madison? Between hotel sheets? I tracked Travis Dunn in minutes. A smug tech consultant who lived in Los Angeles. Wife. 2 kids. Perfect Instagram life. So Madison had been the side dish on someone else's perfect dinner plate. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. And just as I was about to burn the damn folder, my office phone rang again. Blocked number. I picked up without speaking. "Did you like my package?" she asked, amused. "You sent that." "Of course," she said like it was obvious. "You deserve to know. Travis chose his wife, in case you're wondering. But I chose me. I always do." I sat in stunned silence. "I'm flying in tomorrow. Meet me at the rooftop bar at the Vale. 9 p.m. "I'm not coming." "Oh, sweetheart," she said sweetly. "You will. You'll want to hear what I have to say before I tell the world my version of our marriage." Then she hung up, and I realized something. This wasn't just a return. This was a performance. And I wasn't going to let her write the ending this time. The Vale was exactly her kind of place. Pretentious, dimly lit, drenched in overpriced cocktails and people pretending to be important. As I walked through the lobby, the scent of jasmine and money hit me like a slap. Madison always did love being center stage, even if the theater was on fire. I stepped onto the rooftop just before 9. The skyline burned orange against the night, and the wind carried whispers of jazz from the corner speakers. And there she was, perched at the bar like a cat that had already devoured the canary. Hair curled to perfection, blood-red lips, a wine glass in one hand, and a gaze sharp enough to cut granite. "You're late," she said, not looking at me, just swirling her drink like she owned the moon. "I'm exactly on time," I replied, taking the seat next to her, not close enough to touch. "Not anymore." She smirked. "Still obsessed with control. That never changed. And you're still addicted to drama." That made her laugh. "You always were good with words, Jackson. Too bad you never listened." I leaned in, my voice low. "You sent me proof you cheated, then invited me here. So what's this? Some twisted reunion? An apology?" She turned to face me fully, her eyes gleaming. "No, Jackson. This is closure. For me, not you." She slid a USB drive across the bar. "What's that?" "A timeline," she said, sipping her drink like this was casual. "Of all the things I wanted to say to you." of the nights I felt trapped. The times I smiled in public while dying inside. You mean the times you were sneaking off to play house with a married man? Her smile never faltered. Don't be so narrow. Travis was just part of the journey. There were others. Men who made me feel alive. Seen. Men who didn't put me in a glass case and expect me to be their trophy. I felt the heat rise in my chest. So your way of breaking free was betrayal? She shrugged. Better than living a lie. Then why the hell did you come back? She leaned closer, eyes locked on mine. Because people are about to find out what happened between us. And I want my story to be the one they hear first. And what story is that? She smiled. That you were the cold, absent husband. That I tried to save us. That I broke. Because you refused to bend. I stared at her, trying to find the woman I once loved somewhere behind that porcelain face. But she wasn't there. Just shadows wearing perfume and pride. You don't get to rewrite history, Madison. I don't need to, she whispered. I just need to speak louder than you. She picked up her purse, tossed some bills on the counter, and walked away, heels clicking like a metronome counting down to something bigger. And I realized. She wasn't done. She was just getting started. I didn't sleep that night. Her words circled my mind like a vulture, picking at the bones of my peace. I just need to speak louder than you. That wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Madison wasn't interested in reconciliation. She was staging a comeback. A carefully crafted lie with me cast as the villain. The next morning, I plugged in the USB. I shouldn't have. There were voice notes, videos, screenshots, all taken out of context, conversations where I was exhausted from work, quiet moments she recorded without my knowledge, edited to paint me as cold, dismissive, even cruel. She titled it, The Cage, a digital scrapbook of half-truths designed to bury me alive. She even included a message for me. By the time you hear this, the file will already be in the inboxes of a few key people, your boss, a couple of your clients, maybe even that little nonprofit you love so much. Don't worry, Jackson. I'm not destroying your life. I'm just telling my truth. I could barely breathe. This wasn't just an affair. It was warfare. I called my friend Ethan, a corporate lawyer who'd seen too many marriages end in bloodless executions. He listened in silence, then said, "She's building a story. That file? It's a tool. She's trying to control the narrative before anything legal begins. You need to fight back, fast and smart." I felt sick. Not because I didn't believe him, but because he was right. For so long, I clung to dignity. Let her walk away with no scenes, no revenge. I thought I was being the bigger man. But Madison mistook silence for weakness. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. Ethan and I met that evening. He brought his laptop, a folder of papers, and a look that meant business. First, he said, we get ahead of it. We draft a statement of our own. Not emotional. Not messy. Just facts, your timeline, your truth. We log evidence. The surveillance Madison didn't know I had from the house. Receipts. Messages. A legal map of her lies. I nodded. What about my job? He sighed. You'll need to get in front of HR. Today. Tell them the full story before her version leaks. Make it clear this is a private matter, and you're taking legal steps to protect your name. I sat back, feeling the weight of it all crash down. A week ago, I was just a man haunted by a bad marriage. Now I was in a cold war with the woman who swore she loved me. A woman who now used the truth like a scalpel, cutting just enough to leave scars, but never bleed herself. She wanted to burn my world down. But what she didn't know, she'd left the matches in my hands. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I had already drafted my statement. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't vengeful. It was precise. Clean. It outlined the truth, the affairs, the recordings, the manipulation. I sent it to Ethan first thing, and he replied 15 minutes later. Perfect. Now send it to HR before she does. Click. Sent. I sat back in my chair, exhaling like I'd just put down a loaded weapon. Madison had tried to beat me to the punch, but this time, I swung first. And I didn't miss. By noon, I was in the office of Mr. Grant, the managing partner of the firm I'd built my career in. A serious man with a face carved out of rules and routine. I wanted to get ahead of something, I said, handing him the printed statement. His eyes moved across the page like a slow storm. Then he looked up and asked, "Is this about the emails we received this morning?" My stomach dropped. She beat me by 30 minutes. He slid her email across the desk. The subject line was all Madison, dramatic, manipulative, rehearsed. A wife's cry for help, the marriage behind the mask. It was 7 pages long, full of poetic suffering. She painted herself as the silenced woman, the broken wife who fought for love while I chased cold success. The same words she'd said to my face, only dressed in flowery victimhood now. But I had my own pages. I gave them everything. Evidence, receipts, video logs, a notarized letter from my therapist confirming our final year of counseling, where Madison refused to participate, and screenshots of her messages with Travis, clear as day. Her laughing about playing the devoted wife while spending nights in hotel beds that weren't mine. Mr. Grant read in silence. When he finished, he nodded once. You were smart to come forward. She's not done, I said. This isn't just about me. She's setting the stage for a story. Probably prepping a podcast, interviews, whatever gives her attention. Grant raised an eyebrow. Then we'll be prepared. I left the office feeling steady for the first time in days. Until I got the call. Blocked number again. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. Her voice was soft, almost amused. You always did love playing the hero, Jackson. Just remember, heroes fall harder. And the world loves a woman with a broken heart. Let's see who they believe. I should have been angry. But all I felt was tired. She wasn't coming back to reclaim anything. She was coming back to destroy the ruins she left behind, just so she could pretend she'd been the one buried. But I wasn't going to be buried. I was going to build. And the first brick would be the truth. The next few days moved like a storm front, quiet in the distance, violent up close. Madison was everywhere. Her social media came back to life with curated heartbreak. Black and white photos. Melancholy captions. A dramatic post about rebuilding after emotional captivity. And comments flooded in. You're so brave. He didn't deserve you. You inspire us. She was scripting the show. And the audience was clapping. But she didn't know I had something she'd forgotten. Security footage. Back when our marriage was cracking at the seams, I installed cameras at our lake house, our escape place, as she called it. She said she needed weekends there alone to write. Said she needed silence to find herself. But what I found in that footage wasn't silence. It was Travis. And another man. And another. Different weekends. Different cars. Same lies. I watched her laugh, kiss, undress, wearing the sweater she told me she lost, drinking the wine she claimed she no longer liked. She brought strangers into the house we built together and turned our walls into a motel of secrets. I copied the footage to a hard drive. No narration. No edits. Just reality. But I wasn't ready to use it, yet. Instead, I gave it to Ethan, who looked at me like I just handed him a nuclear weapon. This, he said. This ends her story before it starts. No, I said. It ends her lie if she goes public. Until then, we hold it. He nodded, reluctantly. Fine. But if she tries anything, press, podcast, book, this goes straight to court. Meanwhile, Madison kept sending messages. Not to me directly, but to people close to me. My assistant got a cryptic DM. My sister received a call from a blocked number, sobbing on the other end. Madison's signature move, emotional grenades lobbed through others, never thrown directly. Then she showed up. At my gym. She stood by the front desk in yoga pants and sunglasses, like this was some casual run-in. Jackson, she said with a smile. Didn't expect to see you here. You followed me, I replied flatly. She shrugged. I wanted to talk. In public. She stepped closer. I miss the way you used to look at me. Before everything. I miss the man I was before you turned our marriage into a graveyard, I said coldly. Her smile faded. Then she whispered, you don't want this to turn ugly. Then stop painting your lies in watercolors and pretending they're art. She didn't reply. Just walked out, hips swaying like she still had control. But she didn't. Not anymore. That night, I opened a blank document. Titled it, My Story. The Real One. And I began to write, not to fight her narrative, but to bury it. With facts. With truth. With everything she never thought I had the strength to say out loud. She wanted a war. So I gave her one. But mine was made of evidence, not emotion. 3 days after the gym stunt, the first cracks in Madison's little empire appeared. A former friend of hers, Sophie Banks, reached out to me through Ethan. Sophie was a fashion editor, someone Madison used to call her sister from another mister, until, apparently, Madison slept with her fiancé 2 years ago. I never knew. Madison had buried that drama like she buried everything else, under smiles and filtered selfies. I'm not here to help you, Sophie told me on the call. I just want to make sure she doesn't get away with rewriting history again. She does this. Spins webs. Makes herself the victim. Destroys people who stay quiet. That was all I needed. Sophie sent me screenshots, texts, voicemails, and a journal entry Madison once emailed her in a late-night spiral, boasting about how easily she could turn people against me, how she deserved to be worshipped, how she had 5 men on the line before we even split. I had more than enough. But Ethan said one thing that made me pause. If you go public, even with the truth, you enter her battlefield. She wants noise. You need silence, precision, legal suffocation, not emotional retaliation. So we planned a quiet lawsuit. Defamation, reputational harm, attempted interference with business relations. All backed with timelines, evidence, witness accounts. The works. The papers would hit her like a ghost, unexpected and cold. Meanwhile, I kept watching her burn her own story down. She went on a podcast, Unspoken Wounds, an hour-long sobfest where she called me emotionally absent, claimed I mocked her writing dreams, and cried about being erased by a man who never really saw her. I listened in silence. Not once did she mention Travis. Not once did she say she left. Instead, she painted herself as a woman, set free by her own courage. I should have been furious. But honestly, I was impressed. The performance was flawless. Except for one thing. She forgot I existed outside her script. 2 hours after the podcast aired, Ethan filed the lawsuit. 40 pages of truth dropped on her doorstep, her podcast producers, and the publisher she'd been courting for her tell-all memoir. And within 24 hours, she posted a cryptic story. Some people fear a woman with a voice. But I will not be silenced. No hashtags. No podcast mention. No victory lap. She was shaken. The next day, she called me. No block number. No performance. Jackson, can we talk? I didn't answer. She texted instead. You've made your point. Let's find peace. But I wasn't looking for peace anymore. I was building closure. And the bricks were made of every lie she told with a straight face. She built a house of cards on top of my reputation. Now I was watching it collapse, one false claim at a time. The day her podcast publisher pulled out, Madison posted a black screen to her Instagram story with just 3 words. Truth is relative. That was her way of waving the white flag without admitting defeat. She wouldn't apologize. She wouldn't backtrack. She'd just spin again. Like always. But this time, it wasn't working. The lawsuit made her toxic. Brands ghosted her. Her growing healing community page stalled overnight. People started asking questions in the comments. Sophie leaked a few screenshots anonymously to a gossip forum, and suddenly Madison wasn't the brave survivor. She was a manipulator with a trail of ruined relationships behind her. She went silent. And in that silence, I finally breathed. One evening, I found myself standing in the old lake house. I hadn't been back since the day I found the footage. The place was quiet, too quiet, except for the creak of old wood and the soft hum of distant wind. This was where she'd betrayed me the most. And now, it felt empty. Like her lies had finally packed their bags and left. I sat on the edge of the bed, our bed, once, and remembered all the times I had doubted myself. All the nights I blamed work. Blamed stress. Wondered if I was the problem. Wondered if I was too cold, too distant, not enough. But that's what people like Madison do. They convince you the knife in your back is your fault. They make you thank them for twisting it slower. I stood up, opened the bedroom closet, and found her old box of writing journals. Most were blank. One, though, was filled with scribbles. Ramblings. Pages soaked in rage and ego. One line caught my eye. Control is power. The one who cries first loses. No signature. No date. Just the truth she never meant anyone to see. That night, I burned every notebook in the fireplace. Not out of spite, but as a ritual. A release. I no longer needed proof. I no longer needed revenge. I had reclaimed my name, my peace, my future. When I left the lake house the next morning, I didn't look back. And that was the first time in years I felt like I wasn't carrying her with me. She had returned louder than any goodbye. But my silence, my calm, my refusal to play her game, that was the final blow. She wanted a war of words. I gave her the cold, crushing weight of facts. And when the dust settled, I wasn't broken. She was forgotten. 6 months passed. No more emails. No more blocked calls. No more cryptic posts or veiled threats. Madison had disappeared into the digital mist, exactly where illusions belong. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was cleansing. I moved into a new place overlooking the city. Nothing extravagant. Just windows that welcomed sunlight and walls without memories. I filled it with things that made sense. Plants I remembered to water, books I actually read, art that didn't have to match anything. And for the first time in a long time, I slept like a man who wasn't waiting for someone to come home and lie to him. Madison's lawsuit never made it to trial. She withdrew her public appearances, ghosted her book agent, and vanished from every brand collaboration she'd once bragged about. Ethan said the silence meant one thing. She knew she'd lost. I sometimes wondered what her next version of truth would be. Madison was too vain to stay in the shadows forever. One day, she'd pop back up with a reinvented story, a phoenix rising from ashes she lit herself. That was her nature. To self-destruct, call it growth, and sell it in hardcover. But that was no longer my story to care about. Mine was different now. I went back to volunteering quiet places where real people healed real wounds. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. And I started writing, not emails, not legal statements, but the kind of writing that helped me breathe again. There's something sacred about telling your story without needing anyone to believe it. Because now, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't the broken man she painted. I was the one who walked through fire and came out clean. And if anyone reading this has ever loved someone like Madison, someone who smiles while cutting you open, who flips the truth like a coin, who breaks you and calls it bravery, then let me say this. It wasn't your fault. You weren't too cold. You weren't too distant. You were just human in a hurricane, trying to build shelter out of promises that were never meant to hold. Here's what I learned. When someone shows you their lies, believe them the first time. Never hand over your silence to protect someone else's performance. And most importantly, your peace isn't found in punishing them. It's found in releasing them. Let them live in the fiction they built. You? Live in the truth you survived. She was my past. I left without a trace. And no matter how loud her return tried to be, it could never drown out the sound of me finally being free.
Bye.